Hello there and welcome back to the channel. Today is a very pivotal day for Football Manager 2026, and if you've been following the forums, the subreddit, or just playing yourself with the game that since launch, the foundation of 26 was strong, but there was a lot of cracks. There were specific nagging issues that were driving us all off the wall. While Sports Interactive has just dropped update 26.1.3, I'm going to be honest with you, this might be the most significant minor update we've had in a recent FM cycle. We aren't just looking at a database refresh here, we're looking at fundamental changes to the match engine logic, return mission features that should have been there from day one, and fixes to economic bugs that were ruining long-term saves. I'm going to break this down into three main categories: the match engine, specifically the death of the Strikerless meta, the interface, including the return of pass maps, and the economy, which covers everything from salary transfers to agent logic. So let's get started with the match engine, because this is where the controversy has been the loudest. If you've played online, if you're just trying to min-max your single player save, you know that strikerless formations are completely broken. We're talking about the 3-4 zeros, or the 4-6 zeros, or the 3-7 zeros. So as we overload the midfield, play shadow strikers, and essentially break the AI transfer defensive logic. The patch notes for 26.1.3 explicitly say defensive improvements against strikerless formations. Now let's really analyse what that actually means. In the previous build, an issue was with the centre backs. When you played without a recognised striker, the AI centre backs didn't know who to mark. They would often sit deep, holding against a defensive line against nobody, which allowed your attacking midfielders and your shadow striker to run into the box completely unmarked. It was an overload glitch. This update retunes that defensive logic. AI defenders should now step up and engage those runners from deep. So if you built your entire tactical identity around the strikerless system to exploit the match engine, you're in for a rude awakening. You might actually need to play a number 9 now. This is a massive win for realism, even if it hurts the people chasing the top spot on the leaderboards. Sticking with the match engine, we have to talk about the weather, or as the community has been calling it, Monsoon Manager. There's been a genuine bug in a random number generator regarding weather conditions. You can be managed in Spain, Italy, or even Egypt, and it would rain 80% of your matches. This wasn't just visual annoyance, it impacted gameplay. Slick pitches affect passing crispness, ball roll, and player condition. The patch note simply says lowers the frequency of rain in matches across all leagues. It's a small line of text, but it changes the feel of the game entirely. We should finally see some sunshine, and technically this should buff possession-based teams who rely on a dry pitch to move the ball quickly. There's also been some really subtle but high-level changes to player movement. SI's improved dribbling logic, specifically allow players to perform 180-degree turns. Before this update, you probably noticed when a winger around a blind alley, they would often just stop, get tackled, and run the ball out of play. They didn't really have a brain to realise they were trapped and turn back. Now they can pivot, and this allows for recycled possession and stops those frustrating moments where your world-class winger looks like he's never played football before. They've also tweaked wide player pressing in high-press systems. Your wingers were sometimes getting bypassed too easily, although they're sitting too narrow. This update adjusts their positioning to ensure they actually engage opposition fullbacks properly. Moving away from the grass and onto the screen, let's talk about the user interface and the data hub. The headline update here is a return of pass maps. It was honestly baffling that these were missing or hard to find in the early build. For the tactic creators, the pass maps is your diagnostic tool. It tells you if your pivot is actually connecting play or if the centre backs are just passing sideways for 90 minutes. Update 26.1.3 adds pass maps back into the last match section of the data hub, including into the formation carousel into the match UI, even as advice from the dugout. This is crucial for those of us who play Moneyball style. You can now visually confirm your tactical shape. If you're playing a 4-3-3 and your pass map looks like a U shape, your midfield is non-existent. You can easily see that from the data before today. Another massive quality of life fixture is the spoiler bug. This would drive me insane. You'd be watching a match in key highlights mode, and the screen would flash a notification from the latest scores or the dugout voice saying that you had scored. But on the pitch, the highlight was still in the build-up phase. This completely ruined the tension. You knew the goal was coming 5 seconds before it happened. They have fixed the synchronization here. The UI now triggers the ball after it hits the net. It sounds minor, but for your immersion, it's huge. They've also fix the crash in the hot seat mode. For those of you who've been playing local multiplayer with friends, there's been a nasty bug where finishing the last match of the day caused a crash, or entering the second match gave you a black screen. This is reportedly fully patched out. Stability is also the most boring part of a patch note, but honestly it's the most important. Now let's get into the finances and the transfer market, because this is where long-term saves were dying. We have to start with Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Pro League logic in FM26 was aggressive, which is realistic, but also kind of broken. They were making repeated lowball offers for star players. You'd have a player worth 80 million and a Saudi club would just bid 30 million. You reject it, the player would get angry and then they'd just bid 31 million. You'd reject it, and the player would demand the transfer. It was an infinite loop of morale destruction. AI wasn't recognising the player's true market value, it was just spamming vids to unsettle them. The patch note specifically mentioned tweaks to Saudi clubs making repeated lowball offers. This should mean if they want your star man, they will have to pay the premium price. It stops the AI from bullying the human player into selling someone simply just to save the dressing room atmosphere. Connected to this is the agent logic. We've all seen the screen where agent suggests make an offer now, also simultaneously saying wait for contract expiry. It was contradictory and unhelpful. That logic has been cleared up. There's also a very funny but game-breaking bug which has been squashed rather than not for sale price tag. There was a glitch where, if the player is deemed not for sale, the media speculation would cite a fee of exactly 226 million every time. It was clearly a hard-coded error in an integer overflow. This has been fixed, so transfer rumours should look more organic and less like a spreadsheet error. For those of you managing the MLS or the A-League, you got some love too. The area in salary cap leagues was notoriously bad at managing its own roster. In the MLS, AI teams were frequently traded for players they couldn't actually afford to register, forcing them to waive players immediately. The update tweaks AI logic to ensure they check their salary cap before actually making a move. And in Australia, they've adjusted the female player wage demand. Apparently the wage expectations were wildly out of sync with the league's revenue, making it impossible to build a squad without going bankrupt. This has now been balanced. There's also been some hidden gem updates in the patch that you might have missed if you just skim the list. One that I personally actually love is the change to news items for former players. Previously, if you re-signed a club legend, say bringing Messi back to Barcelona or a local hero back to your lower league team, the game treated it like it was a generic transfer. Barcelona signs Messi, dry and boring. Now the news item will reference their previous stint at the club. It acknowledges the history. This adds a little bit of narrative that makes football matches special. Another big one for the micromanagers is you can now select coach assignments for your reserve and youth teams. In the launch build, this was often locked or automated. If you're the type of manager that wants to ensure that your under-18s are a specific style of possession play, you can now designate exactly which coach is running those sessions. It gives you total control of the pipeline from the academy into the first team. There's also a fixed B team stuff bug, which was rare but annoying, where you would hire a manager for your B team, they would accept the contract, and then they just wouldn't join. The position would stay vacant. It was stuck in a loop of just hiring ghosts. That is now just resolved. Finally, I want to touch on the in-game editor. I know not everyone uses it, but for those that do, there were some graphical glitches. Hidden attributes on the 1 to 20 scale weren't color-coded correctly, making it hard to read at a glance. They have fixed that. Also fixed the move to my club option for unemployed staff, which was sometimes missing. So, how does the community react to this? I think the reaction is going to be overwhelmingly positive, with a slice of why wasn't this at launch. The return of past maps and the fixing of the rain bug are things that arguably shouldn't have been an issue to begin with. However, the speed at which SIs address the strictest meta is quite impressive. Usually tactical meta shifts take months to patch out. During this update, 26.1.3 sends a strong message that it wants the simulation to be balanced. If you are a competitive player, you have to scramble to find a new tactic. The plug-and-play tactics on the Steam Workshop that rely on 3 Shadow Strikers are likely dead as of today. We're going to see a shift back to traditional formation, the 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, maybe in the 4-4-2. If you're looking for a long-term save player, the Saudi transfer fix is going to be a saviour of your save file. You can often build a squad without fear of constant unrealistic poaching attempts destroying your team morale. Overall, this update stabilises the game. It polishes the rough edges of the match engine and gives us gives us back the data tools that we actually need to analyse our performance. My advice, load your save, check your tactics, because your strikerless formation probably doesn't work anymore. Enjoy the fact that it's finally stopped raining. That's the breakdown of 26.1.3. It's a comprehensive fix of the list that addresses the biggest complaints that we've had since launch. Let me know in the comments how your tactics are holding up with the new defensive logic, and if you've noticed any other changes that weren't in the patch notes. That is all for today. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.